Yes, Jeff doesn't have a fancy nickname for me. I am going to be super quick on this. So just going to cover two topics, PFAS, which we've all been bludgeoned to death with that recently, but I'll just touch on a couple things there, and then the source water protection plan. So with PFAS, you might have seen the White House and EPA issue the 3-year strategy for PFAS. I think I'd be able to say that by now. So that's identified here with a roadmap for what they anticipate happening between this fall and then the winter of 2024. So I'm not going to go into great detail for the sake of time, but that's in the information that you're going to have in your packets here. More importantly, from the US EPA and then the IEPA perspective, there's some things that are in the works here. There's the lifetime health advisory levels for PFOS and PFOA that have been identified by the US EPA. And then the IEPA, you guys have all experienced the community water supply sampling. So my understanding is that that has been completed. You probably have seen the results of that. If not, they are for public information. There's a website devoted to those results. They are now going to be going into the groundwater standard development and the MCL development phase. So there was, if you were a part of the ISA WWA regulatory updates, there's obviously quite a bit of discussion on this. I think the most important or the most interesting one from my perspective is the PFOA and how that is going to be disseminated to an MCL level, given the fact that the current guidance level, or the health advisory level, I should say, is 2 parts per trillion, which is the minimum detection limit. So they can't establish a level that is lower than that. The question is going to be, are they going to allow backsliding in an actual MCL that is higher than that? So TBD there, but that is going to impact quite a few communities if they do, in fact, establish an MCL that is at the health advisory level for PFOA of 2 parts per trillion. Source water protection plan, just very high level. There are 4 parts of the source water protection plan. There's a vision statement, a source water assessment, source water protection plan objectives that have to be created, and then an action plan. The vision statement is essentially, identifying the commitment to protect your source water, and then also importantly to allocate resources that you need in order to meet the objectives. So that's kind of a high level requirement, but that will be needed. And then there's some minimum requirements in here that are identified. So this is a form that you obviously cannot read up on the screen here, but this is the form that you will have to fill out. It's a fact sheet that will need to be completed by each community to identify that they've gone through the assessment phase. Objectives, so there's a handful of objectives that have to be met as the minimum requirement. Vision statement, conducting the assessment, addressing the problems that are identified in the assessment, and then considering current and future issues. So those are some of the objectives that could be identified and included as part of this. And then the action plan has to describe what you're going to do to meet the objectives, the schedule by which you're going to do so, the resources that you're going to need in order to meet those objectives, and then the problems and obstacles to be able to implement the solution. I want to emphasize again, these are the minimum requirements. Everybody will have to do something really similar to what was identified here. But if you are aware of a particular source water issue, obviously it's going to be in your best interest to dive into that in greater detail and come up with a specific plan for your community, whether it's surface water and you have sedimentation issues, if you have hazardous materials stored within certain distance from wellheads. Those are the types of things that might instigate a higher level of detail. And then here is the timeline by which you will need to develop and submit the source water protection plan. So pretty straightforward, but obviously it is coming up here very soon. So if you're in the planning stages or going through budgeting and you understand that you have to meet these requirements, if you think you can do them yourselves, then obviously that's pretty pretty straightforward if you need to get somebody in order to help you meet the objectives. That starting those discussions sooner rather than later would be preferred. So with that,